Welcome back to Behind the Label. I'm Law from El Gray Photography.
I'm Jerry from Stone Fences Stores.
And doing a quick recap from our last episode. We originally went from Old Ripy, where James comes over from County Tyrone in Ireland in 1830. Has a very short livelihood as a distiller, but gets the ball rolling, gets his sons into the game.
Yep.
We get to the point where we have 4 of the sons, well, 3 of the sons, and actually several more that work in there.
Yeah.
But basically 3 that started a distillery up on the cliffs overlooking the Kentucky River.
Yeah, 3 of his grandsons.
3 grandsons,
Yeah,
right? I'm sorry.
yeah, TBs.
Yep.
TBs. We talked about
TBs.
his sons TB and James B. So,
Yes.
so the Ripy Brothers distillery starts in 1905. So they start the distillery, and they ran it through Prohibition.
And when did Prohibition start?
1920.
Just to make sure.
Very disappointing year. Very disappointing.
It's odd how
On a side note, have you ever heard of Carrie
1920,
Nation?
2020.
Have you ever heard of Carrie Nation?
Carrie Nation.
Have you heard that name?
Isn't it? Yeah, so you dated her in high school and went to the prom. No, no. Okay.
No, you never heard of that? The axe wielding temperance movement?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Yeah! Guess where
Yes.
she was from?
I'm guessing the heart of bourbon country.
Kentucky. So Prohibition started. That was the day the music died. And so we have 13 long years. So the distillery sits up there. And I've got a little, I don't know if I've got, let's see if I can find it real quick. I read this to you earlier, the little newspaper article.
Yes.
What's going on during Prohibition?
Yes.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
Yeah. So during Prohibition, some people may not realize that even though alcohol was illegal, medicinal alcohol was still sort of or still legal, sort of in a prescription form. As a matter of fact, I think you did actually have to have a physician's prescription to.
It was hard to get to.
Yeah, I bet.
Yes.
Yeah, you went and went like, oh, let's see this wart. He's like, alcohol, take that right off. So there were still ways, even during Prohibition, besides what most people think of, the speakeasies, bootleggers, that sort of thing. There was still legal production of alcohol, just very limited. And if I remember correctly, didn't this distillery we're talking about with the Ripy Brothers, I think they had a medicinal license.
No, actually, Wild Turkish, it actually closed down.
Which one of the?
There were only 6 left in the whole country that actually had a medicinal license.
But there was one on the slides that you sent me that was in Anderson County that.
Well, Four Roses was considered kind of the Frankfurt distillery.
That was probably.
Yes,
that
was part of it.
Four Roses. Yeah.
So I have this article from 1921. It's the Public Ledger, and this talks about TB Distillery, the one he had sold to the Whiskey Trust,
right. And we'll do another episode on the Whiskey Trust because that's its own thing. So
this is June 16th or 17th when it was put out, 1921. So this is during Prohibition.
So 1 year after Prohibition began.
Yes. It says armored men from 10 to 20 in number. So armored. So Al Capone, you thinking?
Yeah.
They raided the TB Ripy Distillery at Tyrone. So the one we were talking about down there by the river, they raided it. They hauled out 280 cases of whiskey.
Wow. So how many bottles is that? Was there 24 bottles in a case then, or?
It depends, 12 maybe. So
okay. Yeah,
so it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's 400 plus bottles if I'm math.
So you got that would have to take a while to load that much whiskey. So I'm having to think there's probably an inside job of where you play the.
Well, no, they actually they actually tied the guards up in the distillery office.
There you go.
Yeah. So there were guards at the time. So that's why a lot of during the Prohibition, the warehouses consolidated because there was a lot of this going on, a lot of theft. And so they consolidated a lot of these warehouses and moved them into central, locations for warehouses to hold it, and they could guard it better. So we got Prohibition. You know how long it lasted?
13 years.
13 years. I think I told you that. It's a long time. Long time. And
it's a long dry spell.
And it was hard on the economy of Kentucky. Why do you think it was hard on the economy for here?
Well, the same reason, kind of what we're going through now with all the COVID stuff, because you get farmers that get, you got to start looking at the production. You have farmers that were used to growing a certain amount of corn, a certain amount of rye, a certain amount of, or they were at least importing rye. But in this area, definitely corn. And all of a sudden, that buyer shuts that valve off, and now you have these farmers that are suffering. You've got the consumers, of course, that are not able to get the product.
You got the people making the
You've got
barrels.
the people making the barrels. You've got people making the rings that go around the barrels. So there's a lot of ancillary stuff that goes with that.
So, I mean, it was something that was bound to end. So, in 1933, it ends and repeal. There's a lot of celebration going on. It's not like whiskey wasn't drunk during those 13 years. We have a story about a house across the street we'll talk about when we talk about the Lawrenceburg family. It was still going on. But, and you know, after Prohibition, the Ripy brothers actually rebuilt that distillery.
The one that's on the hill.
The one that's on the hill, the Ripy Brothers Distilleries. They go back and rebuild that. And they run that until the late 1940s. And a guy by the name of Alvin Gould
Now,
out of
during that
Cincinnati,
time, what was it called? The
Ripy Brothers Distillery.
Just the Ripy Brothers?
Yes.
Okay.
And this gentleman from Cincinnati, Alvin Gould, purchased the distillery from him and called it the JTS Brown, which is the JTS Brown. That Brown name is a very big name in the bourbon industry. Thinking of Brown Foreman and all that. So they purchased it. So that's actually not the end of the Ripy involvement in the distillery, because E.W. Ripy was very essential. E.W. Ripy Sr. was very essential in rebuilding the distillery after Prohibition. His son managed the plant even after they sold it.
And what was his son's name?
E.W. Ripy Jr.
And you'll notice there's a lot of father-son kind of,
Well,
same,
I mean,
same
a
names
lot
throughout
of
all these stories we
the
did.
two gentlemen on this house, one's the fourth and one's the third.
Yeah.
So a lot of that.
Yeah,
So
there's a
they
lot of
actually,
name passing down.
I mean, there was a lot of involvement. Olivia Ripy, who was actually sister of one of the gentlemen on this house now, worked at the distillery until the last decade. She ran some of the bottling lines and all that. So that Ripy involvement was there for a long time. We actually haven't named the distillery
Yeah, we haven't
yet.
named the distillery yet. We're holding off on that.
Yeah.
So right now it's just either the distillery on the hill is kind of the way I'm.
Oh, we're looking at Kentucky River.
Yeah.
It was Old Hickory Springs on time, yeah. Ripy Brothers Distillery.
And it finally became the Brown,
JTS Brown Distillery.
Brown Distillery.
Yes. So that's pretty much, when you get to that point, you're talking about the Ripy sons, that's their end of their involvement with, that distillery.
Right.
But they weren't done with distilleries.
Exactly.
So a lot of people wondering why in the world Ezra Brooks is in with the Ripy
Sitting
distillery.
on this table.
Sitting here with Ripy and Wild Turkey product.
Yeah. And for you astute viewers, if you will notice on our previous episode, we actually had things in this order, I think.
Yeah, the Ezra Brooks was at the end.
Yeah, on the end.
Yeah.
But after we started thinking about it, we kind of found out we really should put it there, because why?
This was started at a distillery in Lawrenceburg. And it was actually a distillery that was built in the 1870s. It's called the Silas O. Hackley Distillery. Silas, good old name. And that lasted till Prohibition. And it shut down. And it reopened after Prohibition. And guess what family was involved in the reopening?
I'm going to guess the Rippies.
The Rippies. The Rippies were involved.
And that's
By that
why we
point,
changed it, because it chronologically,
yeah.
we're sort of drinking these in chronological order, rather than the typical tasting of when people drink the lowest proof to higher proof.
I didn't want him necessarily with 290s in a row.
Yeah.
And but no, it was actually called the Hoffman Distillery at that time. It had been owned by a gentleman whose last name was Hoffman. So it was known as the Hoffman Distillery when the Rippies ran it.
And that was in Lawrenceburg.
In Lawrenceburg,
Yeah.
yes. Not far from here. We'll have some pictures of that distillery. There's a couple structures still left from it. So they ran it and actually came up with this in the 60s.
Yeah.
And Ezra Brooks, which was one of the most popular bourbons during that time.
Yeah.
In the
But
60s, 70s.
it kind of looks like another bourbon than
Yeah, well, it's not a bourbon.
not a bourbon. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Definitely
don't
not
get
a
us
bourbon.
started on a bourbon. It
But-
looks like a certain Tennessee whiskey.
Right. But some of you watching may think, hey, I've seen that bottle before, but not exactly like that, but it
Yeah.
looks the same.
There was actually a lawsuit about this label.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of lawsuits
Yeah,
about,
so
labels.
this one looks like Jack Daniels.
It does, don't it?
Yeah, it does, bottle shape, label, black. So granted, it does have a certain similarity. And like you said, there was an actual lawsuit over that
Yeah.
to try, but obviously who came out ahead?
Well, they're still producing this.
Right,
Yeah.
that's my point.
Medley, it's funny, the Medley distillery in Owensboro claims, that they come up with this product. But it was that Hoffman distillery before Medley bought it out. And so this, distillery ran to the 1970s.
Yeah.
The Rippies, by that time, it had been sold out of the Rippy family. Somebody else ran it, and in the 1970s, it was closed. But there's still a couple of buildings still there. And we love finding
Oh yeah. I like
remnants of buildings.
all the archaeology kind of,
Yes.
sort of like old temples.
Yeah. And we'll throw you some pictures of that on.
One aside I want to throw in, whenever you see a name, that's kind of what we're really wanting to do is pick apart, again, old Rippy, we're literally saying a Rippy house. When you see something like Ezra Brooks, sometimes that's just a marketing thing, but most of the time, especially related to bourbon, there's an actual story even just behind the name. So tell us the story behind Ezra Brooks. Ezra is kind of a mix of fact and fiction as far as naming goes.
Yeah, there's nobody I know of that was actually named Ezra Brooks.
Not Brooks,
Yes.
but Ezra
Who?
Rippy.
Oh, that is true.
Yeah.
Yes. He was one of the Rippy sons.
Yes.
That's
So
right.
Ezra, they liked the name Ezra. They thought it sort of sounded kind of cool. And I'll tell you too, Ezra's kind of kind of an offbeat, cool name. But they didn't want to, from what I understand, didn't want to get mixed up in the controversy of trying to use the Rippy name that had previously been established.
Yes.
It would have been a legal battle. It would have been also sort of playing off someone else's brand.
Oh, names are everything.
Yeah, they
names
may not
are everything.
identify with that, so they really kind of liked this Ezra name, but they decided to go with Ezra Brooks. So that's sort of Ezra's stage name, I guess.
So this is actually more corn in this one than the Wild Turkey products. This one's actually 78% corn. So it's a high corn content. You're getting up to what a lot of corn whiskeys are like 80% or more. So you're talking about 78%. And then,
So now, again, remind everyone, what's the maximum corn?
there's no really maximum. There isn't a maximum. There's a minimum.
Okay.
Just a minimum,
Okay.
at least 51%
Okay.
corn. But this one's 78% corn, 12% rye, and 10% barley. So it actually has a higher corn content than this one does, or this one. So, that's pretty much our run through of the Rippy Brothers, and you will see how Rippy Brothers became this
Right.
in our next episode.
Yeah. See you next time.
See you then.